This is Mount Pilatus in Lucerne, Switzerland. More than 100 years ago, a group of entrepreneurs developed revolutionary technology and built a railway to get to the top of the mountain faster. It is still the steepest of its kind in the world. The trip to the summit used to take a day on foot and on muleback. Now it was possible in under 40 minutes. This innovation put Pilatus on the map. A similar revolution is going on in Switzerland today. FinTech entrepreneurs are reinventing the financial sector, making it simpler, cheaper, and more convenient. Together with banks, they hope to bring Swiss banking into the digital age. I am Swiss and an entrepreneur. I launched my first startup in Switzerland in 1996, founded additional companies in America and Japan, and wrote books on finance and entrepreneurship. It seems to me Switzerland as a financial center and fintech are a natural match, but we also face circumstances quite different from other countries. To get a better idea of the state of fintech in Switzerland, I visited founders of Swiss fintech startups, investors, bankers, and politicians. They told me about their experiences, challenges, and dreams for FinTech Made in Switzerland.
Ich glaube, die erste Welle ist noch so ein bisschen Euphorie gewesen.
I think the first wave was largely euphoria. It was unclear how we could use technology profitably and disruptively in financial services. There was a lot of trial and error. We had to wait and see which technology existed and how we could use it.
What technology means in general, not just to finance, is that costs of doing things get reduced and things becomes more effective. And whenever this happens, labor gets freed up, which can be used on other things, and you will see wealth creation.
There are two ways to look at it. One is the general perception of fintech. This is largely from the viewpoint of self-service, B2C, and attackers of the existing financial sector. This is one way to look at it, but there is much more. In fact, this is about digitization, less of things you see on the front end, but how we will create value in the future in the financial sector. If you look at Uber, it's still about driving a taxi, but it's so much easier. You press a button, the taxi arrives, you get in, and that was it. I think it will be similar with many financial services. They will get much easier for customers.
Wir können dem Kunden direkt die Dienstleistungen zur Verfügung stellen.
We can offer services directly to customers. This is the main difference. These aren't necessarily new business models we couldn't imagine a decade ago. We certainly knew it was possible back then, but customers weren't ready because they didn't have the technology to take advantage.
Convenience is sicher etwas,
Convenience is certainly what customers will enjoy on a broad spectrum. That's where we're heading. Perhaps less spectacular, but I think if somebody described 5 years ago how to optimize the taxi business with Uber, the description alone probably wasn't that spectacular. But if you can use the service today, it is very spectacular.
If you have a field of business and you are subject to what is called disruption, and disruption is if you are heavily into the taxi business and along comes Uber, or you are running a hotel chain and along comes Airbnb, or you're running a bank and along comes Bitcoin. Those that will do well is those that adapt to the new technology, and those that will not, or maybe even turn hostile, will become a casualty of history.
It is much easier to digitize a media company than a bank. But technology is capable of doing that now, so it certainly will. Everything that can become more efficient will, as always in economic history. This also applies to the highly regulated financial sector.
Natürlich hat die Finanzkrise die ganze Szene ein
The financial crisis certainly harmed the industry's reputation, but we can also repair a lot of things.
den Mensch ins Zentrum setzen.
We have to put people back at the center and think how we can use technology to make finance work to the benefit of people again.
Benefit von den Leuten umwandeln. Wenn man das
If we can do this, then we have achieved something and will also make a lot of money. And it will be a lot of fun because we managed to build something great.
baut.
If you have this repertoire at your fingertips, you can play wrong notes or you can play Bach. Taking advantage of the opportunity to play Bach and the pleasure to be creative is still missing. People see the danger, but not the opportunity.
Also wir sehen das ganz sicher als Chance, das ist ganz sicher so, ja.
We certainly see this as an opportunity. Of course, change can always go both ways, but in general, we see this as a great opportunity. If you look at the recent years, it worked really well. We said we put people at the center, we use technology to offer new services that were previously unavailable, and we bring these services to market. This has worked really well. I don't see why this should change if we continue on this path.
I want to work with something that matters and where you can significantly improve the lives of maybe the whole world population. I mean, that's ambitious, but 80% of the world's population do not have access to banking. So they can't trade with anybody that they can't see, and thus they are poor. This is something we can do much better.
Wenn Finance nicht kann das Leben von der
If finance can't improve the lives of people, we have no use for it. It cannot become an ancillary discipline of economics. Finance exists to reduce risks for people, to improve returns for people's pensions. Never since the end of the Second World War, such great opportunities existed in this industry as today. This is the best time for the financial sector if they take advantage of this opportunity. I have been an entrepreneur since university for the last 10 years. This is my second company.
The first couple of months was a bit difficult to get the first clients on board, which I find, well, pretty natural, I guess, in the financial industry because there's a lot of trust going into this industry.
Insurance brokering, what we did at Knip, neither Dennis nor me had any idea of the insurance business. We started by saying, let's think from the perspective of the customer. This was the secret of our success, because we didn't think like people in the insurance industry who did things the traditional way, but we applied digital know-how to the insurance business.
Der Schritt von einer traditionellen Bank wie einer UBS nach einer
The step from a traditional bank like UBS to a FinTech company was not a big step. Finance is finance. The interesting thing was how we could use technology to be different.
Wir haben ein paar hundert Kunden gehabt. Also wir haben gewusst, okay, das Produkt lässt sich verkaufen. Wir haben auch ein bisschen gewusst, wie.
We had a few hundred clients, so we knew that we could sell our product. We decided to take on a little more risk and founded a company exclusively for this product. We also found investors who believed in us. Together, we developed a business, and in the last 2 years, our client base increased by factor 10.
Because we put a great emphasis on flexibility, we often tried to come up with a good solution for our clients. And then things started to take off, more and more clients joined the platform, and now all of a sudden we have quite a great growth rate.
I often went to the office with a big smile on my face, with a rush of endorphins. On the other hand, as a startup founder, you let all this get very close to you.
Unternehmer sein heisst nicht nur
Being an entrepreneur not only means taking risks, but also having privileges. Being creative, creating something new. This has a lot of value. In Switzerland, we should present entrepreneurship honestly, like it really is.
Die Kultur von einer Bank ist definitiv komplett anders.
The culture of a bank is certainly different from a 3-year-old tech startup. Some reasons I understand, and others less so.
Many companies in the fintech sphere, and that was also kind of how the general public saw it, was that, okay, now these fintech companies are here and they would like to kind of outcompete the banks over the next 10 years. Banking is going to be dead in 10 years. But I don't think that is the way to go. I think banks have been around for way too long for that to happen. The infrastructure is there, the relationship with their clients are there. So what you have to do in order to be successful in the market, both being a bank or being a fintech company, is to see where can your interest actually overlap and where can you find collaboration opportunities and see how you can kind of grow together.
So ist dann der Prozess etwa 10 Monate gegangen.
This process took about 10 months, probably quite fast for a bank, but for us it was sometimes a game of patience. But after about a year, we released our solution, and that was really a milestone for us and also for our customers.
die grossen Würfe sind
All big ideas started in a garage. Apple didn't start in an incubator, but in a garage. I first have to prove my solution has legs, that it works in test markets, and from that, big things emerge.
Als dann natürlich die ganz große Finanzierungsrunde kam, das war dann natürlich
When our big venture round came, that was an entirely new game. Also, when we expanded to Germany with a market 10 times as big as Switzerland. And all this in a very short time. These were all huge milestones that we and our team had to process. First we were 2 people, then 10, then 30, 50, 70, 120. That was a big challenge, but also a fantastic challenge.
Wir haben angeschaut, was passiert mit unseren Margen.
We looked at the margins in our mortgage lending business and quite frankly had a shock. We needed to do something urgently.
Marktleader ist es sehr schwierig zu wachsen.
Growing in mortgage lending with little risk is tough, so we had to think of other options.
Was können wir machen?
Digitalisierung, die tut sicher die Wettbewerbshürde.
Digitization certainly lowers barriers to entry. You can get to the market with a good idea more easily. But the same thing is true for us banks as well.
Das gilt für uns genau gleich auch.
Also unser Approach ist eigentlich von der Credit Suisse.
Our approach at Credit Suisse is participating in the relevant topics and seeing how we can integrate ideas coming from startups in our digital offerings.
Was wir sicher anders gemacht haben, ist, dass wir anfangen sehr stark.
What we did differently was that we began a strong outreach. We approached startups, VCs, consultants, technology providers of all kinds, also regulators, politicians, or interested clients. Our ecosystem is extremely broad. I am the only one in our team with a banking background. Everybody else has a totally different background. Media professionals, a physicist, a lawyer, an artist, somebody coming from an NGO. A broad selection, so we can have a varied approach. Also people who had their own startups, who said, I have an idea, I start a company.
Ist der Schweizer Hypothekar kommt internetaffin zum eben.
Are Swiss customers internet savvy enough to get a mortgage online without stepping into a bank? We believed in this business case, and it was great to see it took off shortly after launch. Today, it is the flagship of our online offerings, and it also gave us the reputation as the most digital bank in Switzerland.
Der Prozess ist doch etwas aufwendiger.
The process is usually more complex than it looks like from the outside. But we have cooperative and proactive meetings, and we're looking for solutions.
Die Startups möchten unbedingt.
Startups want to work with us, and we also want to innovate. In the end, we find a solution.
Über viele Ecken dann die Lösung.
Wir müssen als Organisation
We have to manage a world of two velocities. A relatively low velocity within the organization to ensure stability. But outwardly, we have to become more efficient and faster, especially with FinTech companies and other tech companies. What are the mistakes of the media industry? What are the mistakes that Kodak made? We try to avoid the same mistakes. We have an advantage. We're not the first industry undergoing this paradigm shift.
Diese Agilität.
The agility and the mentality of FinTech startups, experimenting, being fast, learning, also leaving the traditional path. Companies definitely need to do this as well in the future.
warum soll mich doch
Why should the customer not replace me? Why am I better? I can work with physical elements that enhance the digital world, or I have to be half a step ahead of the competition and anticipate what customers want next. We shouldn't think customers are slow in the digital world. They can be very fast.
Wenn wir jetzt all die Automaten gemacht hätten und ein bisschen für lustig und
If we made all these digital offerings just for fun, with nothing to show on our balance sheet, people would hardly call us the most digital bank in Switzerland or invite us to conferences to present our case. The impressive thing is that we tried something new and we are successful with it. All banks are in motion now. We see this in the associations we are part of. The Swiss Bankers Association has an expert group for fintech. Economy Suisse has an expert group. SECO wants to form an expert group. Now we have a little too many expert groups, but the pitch has sunk in. This is here to stay, and we have to deal with it. I would strongly advise against using the term cannibalization. This is a complement to the existing business model, and those who won't change will lose. Clinging to traditional business models for too long is dangerous. On the other hand, it is also unnecessary to let them go too early.
Bei vielen Sachen muss man Basis machen und dann werden die
With many things, you first have to build a foundation, and the use cases will follow. All in all, there are 1,000 little steps that will develop into something very robust in the end. We have the goal to establish Switzerland as one of the world's fintech startup hubs. We can be a world leader, especially in the insurance industry, but in banking we have to catch up, so Switzerland as a financial center can play a central role in the future.
In den letzten Jahren hat es extrem viel Verbände.
In recent years, associations and conferences have mushroomed to create global awareness for fintech in Switzerland and also help pressure the regulator.
Und das ist eigentlich ein bisschen getrieben ja aus der Einsicht, oder, dass wir
The reason for this is the realization that Switzerland is a banker's nation, number one in wealth management, but we're not on the global fintech map.
Heute kann man sicher nicht davon reden, dass die Schweiz
From an investor's perspective, Switzerland is certainly no hub today with an extreme draw for fintech startups.
es entstehen extrem viele Modelle aus.
Many models originate in Switzerland, like in other places as well. We have good framework conditions in general because we have a strong financial industry, but we're nowhere near Berlin and London. Startups with more than 100 staff after a few years of operations are scarce in Switzerland. If you look at the number of such startups in Berlin or London, you have a mild shock. They hire more people each month than the entire headcount of companies in Switzerland after 3 or 4 years. We are a small country. We have a very small market, and digital business is primarily a bulk business. It scales with market size. What we are lacking in fintech are Swiss companies that succeed beyond the Swiss-German or the French-German market. Those that want to become market leaders in Europe or in the world in some areas.
The thing I'd like to see more of in Switzerland is slightly more unreasonable entrepreneurs. Because it's those that have to figure out, how can I, as a tiny company, really become a world leader in this new field? That takes an unreasonableness and a turning back on everything that, if you like, your education has told you you should be.
I understand that Switzerland doesn't do industrial policy. That's a fact that people tell me all the time. One has to accept that, but the world is moving on, and other countries do industrial policy for fintech. This new world is not about an ecosystem revolving around one person alone, but an ecosystem where we all work together at eye level. That is still missing and needs more work. This is completely different in other countries where you have a much bigger community aggressively working on new ideas. We don't have that in Switzerland. Therefore, the pressure to work together is much lower. We have a bit of a feel-good society in the financial sector in Switzerland still. Switzerland, as a financial center, should collectively make the decision to move forward. Instead, there is a lack of coordination and financial resources. Some people think everything is okay. This is just not true. When I speak with politicians, I find most of them have no clue what fintech is. I strongly believe a large startup fund would be important for the Swiss fintech ecosystem. With large, I mean 500 to 1 billion Swiss francs. This capital should be available for Series A and Series B rounds for bigger tickets for Swiss startups. In my opinion, we have the money, for instance, from pension funds. The only thing missing is somebody taking the lead and orchestrating it. Silicon Valley began like this. It is so successful because of the large amount of venture capital that is available there. It is a close-knit cluster with an extreme dynamism. We have excellent conditions in Switzerland to build something similar in fintech in the next 5 years. If you have all the talent available in this factory, why not simply do it? The most frustrating thing is that it needs a relatively small amount of money. Why not invest in young people, young entrepreneurs who give an arm and a leg to create jobs? Why not put only 0.1%, such a tiny amount, in some kind of government fund for Swiss entrepreneurs? I just don't understand. The train has not yet pulled away completely. We absolutely have a chance to catch up, but we would have to go at it at full speed.
The times in my life when I've achieved the most is when I put myself in danger the most. And it is interesting because there's something about the human condition and performance, in that I believe that we perform at our best when we challenge ourselves a little bit.
Sure, there are obstacles, but I learned to ignore them. Sometimes you have to say, just put an obstacle in my path, I'll walk around it.
Innovation im Geschäftsumfeld.
Innovation in business is not coming from inside companies. There must be exceptions, but in general, it does not come from within.
Themen wie Crowdfunding oder wie Blockchain.
Topics like crowdfunding or blockchain or sharing economy aren't obvious for a bank. Nevertheless, we began to investigate what we can do with the blockchain, how we can integrate it in our business, or how to interface with other companies, and if this all makes sense. Blockchain is finance and technology, so it is FinTech by definition. Still, it is somewhat separate from the FinTech scene, and I often wondered why. One reason is that it is very ideological. Many people with a focus on Bitcoin or cryptocurrency don't want to launch a startup simply to make money. They want to revolutionize the financial system. It is extremely important for a company to open its doors, to accept new ideas and new business models into its own culture. First, we encouraged our employees to submit new business ideas. At some point, we realized that we shouldn't restrict innovation to our own staff. The world should be our playground, so why not invite everybody to participate? Scouting is relatively straightforward. That's the case with us too. We have a lot of good ideas coming to us from the outside. Many startups contact us and want to collaborate. The real challenge is to accept the ideas into the company. A healthy business location is like a forest. If you're frantically trying to support all the old trees, that's unsustainable. The sustainable approach is to say, okay, sometimes an old tree will fall down because it has become rotten and brittle, but new trees have space to grow in its place. The biggest danger lies in preventing the growth of new trees. For instance, if regulatory overhead is so large that startups can't afford it. I think we were sometimes better off if we took a little more risk. The way forward consists of many small experiments. Those that succeed will help you develop. You can reach a point that allows you to create new revenue streams or a new customer experience. But the one big leap directly into the honeypot, I don't think it exists. If a bank can adapt fast enough, I don't think its business model is in danger. Difficult is deploying a new technology. Innovation is not mastering a new technology, but deploying it in the market. If we look back in 10 years, in 2026, maybe we watch this video and what we said back then. I think we will have to deal with things that we currently don't have on our radar. The management must learn to live with this tension, evolve constantly, and if you have enough facts to make a decision, make it boldly and go down this path or another, or also abandon an idea once in a while. In 10 years, I imagine new technology and blockchain in particular will bring fundamental change that we can't fully take into account today, especially in financial intermediation. With this, I mean the functions of intermediaries that technology could fully replace. In the end, digitization will concern us all. I still wonder what exactly a digital hairdresser will look like. I haven't quite found one yet. But for almost all other areas, I have some idea what digitization will look like. The changes will be fundamental. We better think about possible scenarios and how we will live together in the future. I also talk a lot about the possibility of doing things, but relatively few people actually do it. For instance, emit a Swiss franc coin on the blockchain or found a digital autonomous organization that performs a service. Some tools are still missing for that, which all software developers depend on. But in general, what's missing is the spirit to just do it. Excellent fintech companies exist in Switzerland. Not that many, but fantastic companies that managed to team up with large banks and create substantial value. It's a beautiful image. The traditional bank that has existed for 100 or 150 years, and the fintech entrepreneur who is perhaps 30 years old, who launched his company just a few years ago. He managed to solve a problem in the market together with a bank. I salute these entrepreneurs, and we need more of them. It's a fantastic opportunity for Zurich as a business location to take advantage of technological innovations in finance, to think about new ideas and establish them and strengthen the financial sector in which Zurich is already a leader. The Swiss way to work together is very special. Our distances are short. Somebody from Geneva can come to Bern, somebody from Zurich can come to Bern, and we all meet up in Bern. That's different from flying to Singapore or New York. And using video chat is still not the same as sitting face to face. We have a lot of know-how in this country. Banking is in our DNA, not just chocolate and cheese. With UBS, we have the biggest wealth manager in the world. BlackRock said Switzerland is important strategically. We have a lot of good brands with a lot of know-how. I came to Switzerland 3 years ago. I co-founded Knip and then the association Swiss Finance Startups. Everybody gave me a heartfelt, warm welcome. I don't take that for granted, and I give Switzerland great credit for it.
If you invest a lot in effort in being an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you know that yourself, you might as well do it on as firm a foundation as possible, because it would be very sad to invest so many years and sacrifices only to find that you were in a jurisdiction that will pull the carpet away from under you. Switzerland has an excellent jurisdiction, not only for fintech or blockchain technology, but in a very large number of areas.
Privacy, security, digital identity. We are the country of human rights, neutral and politically stable, perfect for a global solution.
Gerade in der Schweiz, das Vertrauen, das wir in jeder Umfrage, die wir ja regelmäßig machen, die Banken und
Especially in Switzerland, the trust in banks and insurance companies is still massive. Let me ask you a question. If you could have a financial service from Google or Apple or from an established Swiss bank, which will you choose? Independent of age or class, people have rock-solid trust in Swiss banks and insurance companies. If we manage to develop a disruptive business model in Switzerland, perhaps with know-how from a bank and Swiss universities, this would be an excellent success story for Switzerland. A country with 8 million people developed a FinTech Lighthouse project that people in Singapore enthuse about, people in London are watching it starry-eyed. Wouldn't this be the best marketing? We plan to establish a blockchain research hub in Zurich. I hope we will succeed. This concerns more than the financial sector alone. It equally applies to the insurance industry. There may be new sectors we don't even imagine for which we can become providers.
Ich glaube, dass es in der Schweiz extrem gute Talente
I think Switzerland has an excellent talent pool. We have knowledge and a reputation that we should put to good use. The point is to transform finance to fintech. The financial know-how is here still. How can we transform it into the future, into the digital world?
Es ist halt schon so, wir haben in der Schweiz, und das ist auch im Kanton Zürich, wir haben kein Erdöl, wo wir können.
It's a fact, we don't have natural resources like oil or gas. We mainly have our brain and our talent for innovation. These are our strengths, and we should build on them. We should cultivate them, and we have this opportunity.
Ich glaube sehr daran, dass wir
I think we can play a leading role in this market in the world and also strengthen the Swiss financial center.
Mein Wunsch an die Schweizer wäre,
My advice for the Swiss people is the following. Have courage and become entrepreneurs. Take risks and don't feel discouraged in case you fail. If we have more startup founders, an ecosystem will form. Founders attract investors. They again attract innovation labs from large corporations, such as UBS with Level 39 in London. This will create momentum that cannot be stopped.
I think crypto will help bring transparency to finance, but certainly also democratize it.
The beauty is we don't have to take on huge risks, just be a little less risk-averse than everybody else, and already we're the best business location.
People will become more open-minded to actually financing maybe the business that you have around the block, rather than just putting your money on the stock market. So when people become more and more open around this, I think it creates a different type of community.
The opportunity to develop new ideas with innovative clients. It's great fun, an amazing time. That's my wish, that we all work together on the Swiss fintech ecosystem. There's the ecosystem between banks and startups. Many are doing this, and it is sexy. But it's also about banks working together among themselves. Not against each other, with each other. Let's not put our own interests first, but think about what the Swiss financial sector needs to catch up.
Der grosse Weg wird sein, wenn wir sagen, wir nehmen die Stärke der Startups, wie sie sind.
The way forward is taking the strengths of startups and taking the strengths of banks and seeing how they together can create value for customers.
There's one characteristic that I think is very interesting here in Switzerland, that you have some of the biggest traditional rivals collaborating. Wow.
The unity Switzerland is showing here is unique, and it differentiates itself in the world. This is extremely positive. But the government should also be part of this. It needs to create the right structure and regulatory environment. Banks, fintech companies, the government, politicians, we should all together push this forward. We have to explain what's happening in Switzerland and why startups should come here. And we should learn from the Americans and the British to make a little more noise and do marketing. Be convinced that we want to be the global hub for fintech in 3 or 4 topics. This is what I wish for.